handling and behavior of windows and doors are quite similar in ARCHICAD. In ARCHICAD, doors and windows simulate the look and behavior of real-life windows and doors. They're placed into walls. Doors and windows cut real see-through openings into the wall so that 3D visualizations are more accurate and lifelike. However, glass panes are represented as solid shapes, allowing opaque openings for standard elevations. The glass lets light in, and you can look through the window and glass doors in photo-rendered views. If we double-click here on the window icon, that brings up our window default setting dialog box. And if you've already looked at the video presentation on doors, you'll find this is practically the same thing. We've got this drop-down box here which gives us preview and positioning. These little arrows here will allow us to scroll through various different windows in our window library, which is quite extensive. We have metal windows. We have awning windows. We have bay and bow windows. We have casement windows, feature windows, fixed windows including glass block. We've got double hung or single hung windows. We've got sliding windows. And we've got special windows, some with arch tops, octagonal, various different shapes to work with. And all of these are parametric, allowing for almost unlimited variations in the size and shape of the windows that we're going to insert into our walls. A window always goes into a wall. Today we'll work with this W1 Casement 12 window. And if you'll take a look here in the preview and positioning box, you'll see that this window is 2'6" wide and 5 feet in height. And the header is 6'11" off of our story 1, and that can be adjusted here at the anchor point. If we click on this drop down box here, you'll see that we can anchor the window as either sill to wall base, sill to story 1, header to wall base, or header to story 1, or we can select a story. If we click on use empty opening, we'll just get an empty opening of this size in the wall. Here is a list of our preview options. This is what the window looks like in plan view. Elevation, wireframe, that's 3D view, and there's a rendered look. As with doors, we have an anchor point either in the center or on the edge, and we can have the window either associated to the wall or we can have it vertical. As in older versions of ARCHICAD, We have a text box that allows us to adjust the various parameters. But in the newer versions we have a graphical representation that does virtually the same thing. And if we click this box here, you'll see that we have various different settings that we can work with. Our window size settings, the general settings, the frame and the sash, the elevation and opening, our sash options, casing settings, sill and stool settings, shutter settings, custom corner, and masonry arch. So we'll review those quickly. On our window size settings, we can set our windows to some standard sizes in this drop down box. We can type in our window settings if we have something more specific. We can also choose the parameters for the rough opening, and we can retain nominal size on the change. Here we can adjust that frame of the window. We've got that horizontal tolerance at 1/4 inch on both sides and the top. We can scroll through these settings either by going through the drop down box or using this little arrow here to go back and forth. So here we are in the general settings. In the general settings, we can adjust these parameters, or as in several other of the settings, we can click this button here and that will bring up our material settings as previously described in the door video. Here we can choose to have the casing and sill on the outside. If we uncheck those boxes, you'll see that the casings and the sills disappear. Same for the inside of the window. We can put the stool or the casing. We have a newer feature called ganging. If I were to click this box here and take a look what happens up here in the preview window, you'll see that the materials on that side of the window disappear, so that if we put two windows together, it looks correct on the elevation and the floor plan views. Instead of having two windows overlapping, we'll have the look of two windows being joined. Here we can click to bring up another drop-down box, and we can show the window as having either no reveal or reveal, a slanted reveal, a splayed reveal, a custom closure, a stud wall with siding, or brick veneer. When a reveal is selected, this box comes available to us. Right now you can see the reveal is 4 5/8 inches, setting the window back here as shown in the preview box. If you take a look here and we change this to, say, say 2 inches. By typing in that information, you can see how the reveal will shift. We can also select our scale sensitivity in the 2D detail level and the 3D. Here we have our frame and sash settings. We can choose either an opening direction of outside or inside. And here we can adjust the parameters for the various frame pieces. Here we have our elevation and opening selections. We can select a sash angle, or what the opening looks like in 2D. This is our sash options settings. We can choose no mullions, an HV grid, an HV grid custom, if I select HV grid custom, click OK, put our cursor over the wall, use our eyeball to select the opening direction, and go into our 3D view. Deselect the orbit, select our arrow tool, and select that window. You'll see we have editable hotspots where we can actually relocate the grid itself within the window, so we can further customize the look of that. We can pick this piece of grid and adjust it horizontally. We'll go back to our floor plan view and back into our window default settings dialog box. Keep going on this. Here we have our cases settings. Again, as in doors, we can adjust all these different parameters. Again, we have our material settings for the casings, which will affect how the materials look in the 3D view. Here we have our sill and stool settings, where we can adjust the height and various different parameters as displayed in this little graphic box here. We can adjust the sill overhang on the left, sill overhang on the right, the stool overhang, we can select whether to have a curved sill or not, or a curved stool or not. And we can also choose to have an apron. Here, as in doors, we have various different options to put shutters on the window. When this is selected here off, this area is grayed out. We can't make any selections, but as soon as we select the shutter style, this becomes available to us. We can choose either a decorative or a functional shutter. We can choose to put it on the right side, both sides, or just the left side. And we can adjust the shutter width here. Also, we can choose if we have both sides and functional selected, we can select to close the shutter, and you'll see how that affects in the preview. Here's how we'll look with the shutter closed. And that's the look with the shutter open. Going along here, we can choose a custom corner on the left and adjust that parameter. And the same thing with the right, adjusting that angle. We can also select a corner column. And here's a graphical interface that will allow us to adjust the parameters for that. We can also check these boxes here if we have different connecting wall thicknesses. Here we have our reveal wall closure. This is no reveal. This is with a reveal. Here we have a slanted reveal. Here we have a splayed reveal. As we scroll through these, you'll see that we have a graphical interface that allows us to adjust all of those dimensions. And here we have our closure settings and reveal geometry. If we close this box for a minute, I'll zoom into our various different reveal options here that we just scrolled through. If we go to our arrow tool, and we select one of these windows, and this one has a slanted reveal, you'll see down here we have a depth of the reveal of 4 inches. I believe that's a 2-foot thick wall. If we make that 1 foot, look in the preview, you'll see how that affects the depth of the reveal. I click OK, and you can see how that changes in the floor plan view. And the same thing can be accomplished with all the other different types of reveals. Moving along. As in doors, we have a variety of Masonry Art settings. We can have it off. We can have a straight arch. A masonry jack arch. A jack arch with keystone. A masonry segmental arch. And a masonry segmental arch with keystone, as reflected in this preview up here. And of course, as we scroll through those, we have various different parameters that we can adjust. We also have, as you have seen in previous videos, have various different options for our floor plan display. We have projected with overhead, symbolic, and overhead all, as explained in another video. And that has to do with how it looks in a slanted wall in conjunction with the cut plane settings. We can also select symbol and outline settings. We can either enable or disable the object's line types. We can enable or disable the object pens. We can select our symbol line pen, our uncut lines, our uncut line pen, our overhead lines, our overhead line pens, and here we have the drop down box for our cut surfaces. We can enable the object's attributes or disable. We can select our cut line pens, cut fill pen, and our cut fill background pen. This is very similar to doors and many of the other objects, so I won't go into that in great detail. And again, here we can select our object materials, how it looks in the 3D view. We can choose to either use the object's materials or disable that. You can see as we click this button on and off that with the object materials on, the brick looks like brick. With it off, it looks like whitewash. We can choose the wall opening material to be the same as the wall edge or the same as the wall side. And if we're in a curved wall, we can split by a straight line or split by a curved line. Another drop down box where we can adjust the depth of the reveal. And we have dimension marker settings. We have our marker settings. And listing and labeling, which will all be explained in detail in a separate video. If we put a marquee around these various different reveal options, we can show selection marquee in 3D. And that'll give you a better idea how the different reveal options look in the 3D view. Go back to the floor plan. Right click on the mouse to select remove marquee. Okay, if we select our front elevation here and bring up our context menu with a right click and select on open elevation, here we can show how our different anchor points are affected in a 2D view. This window has an anchor point of sill to the wall base. This window is sill to story 1. This window is header to wall base, and this window is header to story 1. So if we were to select that wall and click on this node, go into our palette to stretch the height and bring that wall down, you'll notice that when the window is selected as sill to wall base, this being the wall base here, the window is brought down with the wall. Again, header to wall base, the window is brought down with the base of the wall.